It's that time once again. Engines on, let's go. Welcome back to another weekly episode of The Whole Truth. My name is Wes, and my goal is to bring you all the factual news you can handle every week in a concise format. Let's do the RSI website recap. Shortly after the airing of the last episode of Whole Truth, Star Citizen officially hit the $40 million crowdfunding landmark. This is an amazing feat, not only for Star Citizen, but for the world of crowdfunded ventures as well. Because of this, Chris Roberts has become sort of a crowdfunding guru in people's minds, and it's led to a lot of talks about crowdfunding in general, including an interesting interview that we'll get to later in the show. In the letter from the chairman for $40 million, we unlocked the last of the backer-voted star systems. The team at CIG has decided to include both of the top options instead of just the winner. First, the Cabal system is a newly discovered system where some old, empty Taveran cities were found. The Taveran cities went undiscovered for years, and questions arose about the Taveran that had joined the UEE and whether or not they knew about them. Soldiers sent to secure the planet found a bunch of old Taveran war machines and found that even some of the technology had just been made in the last 10 years. Very mysterious. If you're curious who the Taveran are, they were humanity's first enemy in space. They were technologically behind, but they made up for that with brilliant strategy. Korath Thal, a Taveran warlord, launched an attack on the UEE in 2603 to take back a former homeworld, Elysium 4. The UEE wasn't about to give up territory, so a 7-year war began. In 2610, the Taveran had a major defeat by none other than Squadron 42 at the Battle of Centauri. Korath Thal made one final charge at Elysium 4 and suffered a more than 70% casualty rate. Needless to say, they lost the war. With the Taveran race's will destroyed, Imperator Messer II took his place as the ruler of the brand new United Empire of Earth. That's a little bit of the history of the UEE. There's much more, and my goal is to have my first lore video up by about Thursday of this week, so keep an eye out for that. We also unlocked the Oratani system. Oratani was founded during the rapid expansion era of the 25th century. Oratani consists of 6 planets, one of which was deemed a candidate for terraforming. A crew was sent through the jump to terraform the planet as shortly after the jump point collapsed. That had never happened before, and no one could figure out a solution to reach the terraformers, and over time they have been presumed dead, but who really knows? The $42 million stretch goal has been announced, and it's the updated Observist's Guide and the Explorer Mobiglass rig. The Observist Guide is the Hitchhiker's Guide portion of the Star Citizen Galactopedia, and additional funding will be used to expand the website area to include holographic ships, items, and navigation interfaces in 3D. The Explorer-class Mobiglass rig will be given to every player who backs the game before the $42 million goal. It's a visually distinctive exoglass rig that can be used to access the Observist at any time. Chris describes the interface like having to create their own operating system for use with this system in the game world. The exclusive Mobiglass kit will come preloaded with additional galactic information that new players would normally have to explore or barter to fill out. There are also 2 more items coming in the $42 million goal rewards, and that's the Gladius, an additional fighter craft developed by the Squadron 42 team in the UK. It will be the first ship developed by that team. Of course, the other reward is the Towel. Backing before $42 million will get you the most important item in the entire galaxy. Never leave home without it. Last but not least, there's a stretch goal vote to vote on the next player reward item you would like to see. I personally voted for an additional hangar room because I think fleshing out the hangars more is important to the longevity in the game and giving us an incentive to actually use the hangars for more than just storage. And moving on, we get a look at a new in-game company called Flashfire Systems. Flashfire represents a rags to riches story by being the company that changed weapon mountings to be universal instead of highly controlled by each individual weapons or ships manufacturers. Flashfire makes weapon mounts using universal adapters so that almost any weapon can be fitted to almost any ship. Competing manufacturers jumped on the idea, and the gun rush made way for quick advancements in weapon tech. The adapter in question, nicknamed the Puck by engineers, is a silicon brickcrete molded disc that lock seals on both sides. Both attachment points are extremely malleable due to the brickcrete material, which is clay-like to the touch when not in use. It can adapt to the shape of the weapon and then lock itself into place when energized. I gotta say, it's a pretty interesting way to explain that in fiction. It's amazing that CIG is thinking about these explanations of simple systems like this when probably 90% of the people playing the game would never even question that. I like it. In the Terra Gazette, we have an article titled An Uncertain Future. This is basically a short story about an out-of-work engineer who's taken up salvage to get by. I like that these Gazette pieces really exist, but this one didn't intrigue me all that much. It's basically an analogy of any time or place in any society that most of us have had to deal with when people are losing their jobs and trying to make do. We don't really get any cool tidbits about her salvaging career, and they make salvaging sound kind of like it's only for the destitute and just something you do because you can't find a real job. At least that's the point of view the focus character seems to take. It's a short piece and a mediocre read. A lot of the newspaper style fiction is a little too dry for my taste, but like I said, I do like the fact that it exists. We got a work in progress gallery for the Avenger this week. This is something that they usually take from the subscriber only materials and then eventually they post it to the general public. You can basically get a look at some of how the Avenger came to be with images and highlights of communications about the ship. These are pretty interesting to go through if you have the time. I still think that the side view of this ship looks a lot like the elongated version of the ship from Flight of the Navigator, and maybe that's why I like it so much. Dateline 17March2014 is out. Once again, this is one of the better lore series ever made from the official team. I won't go into too much detail because I plan on doing a lore reading of this one day, and I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't read the other episodes. The heroine is Ula Yadav, a behind-the-scenes crime journalist who ends up in a sticky situation while trying to prove that some companies are making money by pretending to be common pirates and stealing goods. Let's just say that nothing ever goes as planned. The Next Great Starship episode 7 aired last week and we got to see the final 5 concept designs. It was stated at the end of the video that 2 teams would be put up for a wildcard vote, but the website is only allowing us to vote for 1. Maybe they're going to take the top 2 vote getters? I don't know. I have to say my favorite design was the reworked 3 Dingo design. What do you guys think? What is your favorite design so far? Let me know in the comments below and let's talk about it. If you want to vote for which team to save, there's an excellent Reddit thread recapping events to help you decide. The links for that, the episode, and the page to vote are all down below in the info section as usual. Let's do the Wingman's Hangar recap. This week we hear about updates to the DFM, including some sound effects and battle music being worked on, as well as LODs and damaged states. Turbulent is also creating the leaderboard, and of course more testing is being done. We get an interview with Jason Spangler, the Chief Technical Officer, about the AI systems, and the team at Infinite Realities is working on the lifelike images so that CIG can put real-looking models into the game. We get cool behind-the-scenes looks at what CIG is doing with AI. The system being used is called Kythera, and the team behind it is Moon Collider. They talk about the role play involved with programming AI for the game. You have to try and figure out what exactly a wingman might do in a given situation before you can really give it a logical set of actions and reactions to events. This can even be different depending on the race or the personality of the character flying the ship. They talk a little bit about dynamic AI, which is represented on screen by a ship coming in for a landing and a character knowing to change their route to walk around it instead of through the landing area. When something changes, it's recomputed on the fly. The team wants the AI to act sensibly to what the player does instead of being too overly controlled. During this part of the talk, we get a little AI testbed footage of some of the characters firing weapons at each other. We get some other footage of the AI avoiding collision with other ships and objects. And let's take a look at that for a moment. This is some pretty interesting stuff. It looks like CIG is covering all the bases with this new AI that they're creating for Star Citizen. I am extremely excited to see where it goes. The MVP of the week went to Phelan for his thread, What You May Not Know About CIG Developers. Phelan also does Pulse, the Star Citizen magazine, which is an excellently made media source. It's so good that we started featuring it on the front page of our website every time it comes out. I was also interviewed in issue number 3 if you'd like to check that out and find out a little bit more about me. You can get links to all of that below the video in the About, Show More section. Thanks again, Phelan, for being a passionate content creator for this community. Let's do some forum feedback. This is a portion where Wingman and Rob Irving answer questions. Are there achievements, yes or no? Rob says the way that Chris looks at achievements is more in the sense of you can do unique things that nobody else did. You can find a jump point and navigate it, you can kill a certain bad guy, that kind of thing. Those kinds of things would show up in the Galactopedia. As far as other things you would think of as achievements in other games, there are going to be things that you can collect as you travel around the universe, like the fish. You've been testing the DFM across all the studios. Who's the current Top Gun? Rob says there is not an official Top Gun yet. When pressed, Chris did say that he is not the best pilot. Eric said the truth is that we are not actually playing across all the studios yet. We are not quite there yet. I think there is one big block or bug that we're trying to get, but the server is up. What are hangar fees and how will they work? Rob said, for all you people out there who already have your ships, we're going to give you hangar space. Hangar fees are for when you need additional hangar space. So when you are visiting somewhere where your main hangar is not, or when you go to land on a planet, then you pay your landing fee and leave your ship temporarily. Or if you need to store something there, you can rent hangar space. Damaged states and all. One ship, for instance, is in a severe wreck from a battle. The current owner, be it an NPC or a player, dies or kicks the bucket. Is salvaging that wreckage considered stealing? Rob said no, of course not. If they've already died and pieces of their ship are floating in space, free game, but don't do any premature salvaging. Will it be possible to launch a Grey Cat PTV or anything else out of the back of a cargo ship, like a freelancer, onto unsuspecting enemies that are hanging out below? Rob said since we aren't starting out with free roam of planets, then no, it won't be as exciting to bring your buggy to another planet, but eventually you'll probably be able to drive your vehicles around on other planets. I think that they misunderstood the question. I think the question was actually about whether you can drop stuff out of the back of the ship and have it fall on people. So obviously that's not going to be possible in 0G, and you're not going to be doing that on the landing pads at the hubs that you go to. We don't have atmospheric flight yet in the game, so we're not going to have that yet either. DirectX 12 is on the horizon. Are there any early thoughts on if CIG is going to utilize this technology? Rob says yes. Actually, we're sending several of our programmers out to GDC specifically to go to sessions on that, among other things. We intend to stay up with graphics technology. Since the scythe model is done, why won't you add it to the hangar? Rob said it is done on the outside, but there's a lot more to do than that. We need to get the HUD in there and the animations for opening and getting into the ship. There's still a little bit more to be done on the interior, like lighting and stuff like that. So when those things are done, you'll see the scythe in your hangar. In the movie Titan AE, they use 0G scooters to get around the wrecks. Will there be something similar that we can carry in our ships and use for salvage and docking, or just plain old joyriding? Rob says scooters. I'm not really sure about scooters per se, but you are going to have jets on your spacesuit, so you can jet around space in your suit. You can actually see a preview of that in the DFM. Eventually, we're also going to do some cargo carrying, sleddy type things. Let's do some 10 for the chairman. For those of you that are new to the series, all of these questions are answered by Chris Roberts himself and sometimes a guest, and this week that guest is Dave Haddock, who is a fiction writer for the game. I was wondering, since our characters are now legal citizens of the Empire, will we be able to vote on issues that the Senate tries to pass? Dave Haddock said, I don't think you're going to be able to vote directly on the builds, but we had talked about the idea that the characters that you're seeing pop up in Congress now are the actual senators that have been elected. Chris then said, one thing I want to let everyone know is that as some people think the fiction is filler on our site, that is not the case. We are very deliberately spoon-feeding out the world and creating the universe. We're actually using it as an in-fiction way of revealing ideas and concepts and tensions that we want to have in the universe, and also in some cases, game mechanics, for example, the trucker show. Dave Haddock then replied, one of the things we had talked about was having elections. So the senators that you are reading about now have to run for office again. So we would write up these characters for them to run up against, do ads, create their platforms, and have players vote for who they want to have in office. That would be kind of a fun way for the community to throw us a curveball, because if we write up a character where internally we think he's going to become a despot, then you guys elect him, we have to accommodate that. Chris Robertson said one of our goals is that we want a lot of the player actions to shape how the story goes. We have a big overall plan that is inspired by the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, but there's a lot of directions you can go inside of that framework, and we want to have players affect that. This is a great example. There's other things that we're going to do. For example, there is a battle between two big groups of players. We're going to have a game master that plays a reporter role, so we'll collect footage around the universe, and when you're in a bar, they'll be playing news reports on the events. I think that they should probably hire me for that, just my opinion. Chris, if you weren't overseeing the whole Star Citizen project, what role would you like to have, or where do you think your talents would most closely lie on the team? Chris said I would guess lead programmer or lead designer. After the game is released over time, as server and connection technology improves, will we potentially see larger but fewer PvP instances, so more players per instance? Chris said yes, there isn't any structural design in terms of how we are coding it, like if it was 8-bit you couldn't get over 256 players in an area. It's really going to be bandwidth throttled and performance throttled. So as those limits go away, we will probably be able to scale up more people in any particular area. I noticed that you are number 5 in the UEE Citizen records. Who are numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4? Chris said I didn't actually know who these were, so I went and asked our web team. It actually turns out I am number 4 in the UEE Citizen records. Number 1 is the RSI admin account. Number 2 is the old website admin's account. Number 3 is Ben Lesnick, who is in front of me, and I am number 4. But the web team has graciously offered to make me number 1, so from now on I will be known as number 1. Can you tell us more about your goals for the shooter portion of Star Citizen? Will it be an awesome first-person shooter or some sort of third-person tab targeting style shooter? Will it focus on PvE or PvP or both? Chris said, well, I'm all about awesome first-person shooters. It's not likely to be third-person tab style shooting. I haven't decided if you're going to be able to pop out to see yourself in third person or not. Generally, it's designed to be a first-person game. The team that's working on the first-person side of the game, their background is in first-person shooters. We're not going to be quick and arcadey like some of the old-style Unreal Tournament or Quake-style shooters are because of our death mechanic. It's slightly more realistic and tactical, and there's more at stake. We're going to be announcing and sharing more about that after the dogfighting module. One addition to the DFM will be the boarding edition. Will it be possible to remotely operate a ship? If I have 2 transports and want to take both on a mission by myself, will it be possible to connect these 2 starfarers belly to belly? Chris said, I would say not really. We don't have any plans for that. You certainly will be able to hire another NPC or player to fly your second ship for you. Will there be an engineering look for our ships so we can walk around selected ships in the hangar and see through the ship to see all the various systems? Chris said we actually had a meeting earlier today and we're talking about Mobiglass and what it can actually do. We're talking about a unified system that will beam from your Mobiglass potentially into your ship HUD, and even if you have a helmet on, into your helmet mounted display. The Mobiglass will actually have a mode where you can do what the holotable does but on the Mobiglass, and then there's some other engineering stuff where you can manage systems, and we're also talking about having that happen on your Mobiglass. You can pull up the different systems you have on your ship and set them for different power ratings and all that kind of stuff. The way we're doing Mobiglass is it's got an augmented reality, so you would pass the Mobiglass over your ship and it highlights with a hollow outline the components that you're thinking about. Will there be a reason to ever fly at less than max velocity, like cruising speed, say 80% of maximum? Using far less fuel or less wear on components, will wear and upkeep be modeled, or some other reason to not always go as fast as the ship will fly? Chris said yes. First off, if you're in a dogfight, you will be able to turn much tighter at a lower speed. Other reasons would be use of fuel, because when you're at max velocity, it's not going to be as efficient. And when we have wear on components and stuff, we do model wear and upkeep on the model. You will actually see your ship get grime and dirt and age over time. You can take it into a planet and get it scrubbed up, but it's never going to be as pristine showroom quality like the day you bought it. How satisfied are you with the CryEngine so far? Are there any things you fear you cannot realize with it that would have been in your dream version of Star Citizen? Chris said, I'm very satisfied with CryEngine so far. Obviously we have some challenges because we're using the engine for something it wasn't primarily built for, i.e. we're having big space with vehicles that fly at fast speeds over long distances, whereas CryEngine is built for first-person combat, so generally play areas are 4x4 or 8x8 kilometers. Most of the things I want to get done are getting done. There are some long-term things going seamlessly from space down to the planet, but we're pretty sure that we can get that worked into the frame of the engine. How will the chat system in the game work? When we stumble across another player in space, how will we communicate with them? Will it be via voice chat, text chat, or both? Chris said we're still trying to flesh that out. Our goal is to have VoIP. We're also going to try to have this technology, and we actually have it up and running, called Live Driver, so you can talk and your webcam will transcribe your face to your avatar, so your avatar's mouth moves along the lines of how your mouth is moving. We're going to let people hail other people, and if someone accepts the hail, you'll be able to talk to them. If you don't want to use voice chat, you can be using text chat. That does it for the Q&A. Let's do some other news. As I said earlier, Chris Roberts has become a sort of role model for the crowdfunding community, and BBC.com wrote a piece about him called How to Build a Universe for $40 million. It's an interesting read, but it's one full of things that have been repeated in almost every news article on the web about Chris and Star Citizen. One interesting note, though, was a quote from Chris that said, "We could spend an eternity building this game, but we have to make decisions about what we focus on, and having the crowd involved really helps us with that process." For me personally, I think it's important for everyone to remember that. The scope of this game so far is massive, and you will not get everything you hope for or want when the game releases. The scope of our imaginations is still greater yet than what a team can deliver to us in a few years' time in a video game. Will we ever get to that point with video games? Or will we end up traveling the galaxy in real life before that happens? Who knows? In other news, this week a game called Planet Explorers released for early access on Steam. The story is that you're a part of an expedition to discover and colonize new planets, and on your way to a very distant one right now. When you arrive, something hits your massive ship as it's entering the atmosphere, and you leave via a small escape ship. You crash land on the planet's surface, and your tale of survival and life on an alien world begins. Planet Explorers is a voxel-based game where you can craft, build, and fight to stay alive. The single-player experience is a great one with tons of enemies, quest lines to fulfill, and a mostly fleshed out game. The really interesting thing about this game is the hundreds of things that you can build right inside the game with recipes you can find and learn. The other awesome thing is that the game comes with a huge editor, so you can make your own vehicles, ships, and anything you can imagine and place them into the game in various ways to use, and they work. This game is amazing in the single player so far. The multiplayer still has a lot of issues, and you can connect and free play and build, but it's really lacking a lot of things that make the single player more fun. You can check out the game on their website, and make sure you take a look at the forums to see what's already in the game and what's not, to determine whether you actually want to purchase this or not. I would say that the base single player game as of now has about a 20-hour storyline playthrough to it. It's really infinite though if you get into the building aspect of it. It's time for the r/Star Citizen Post of the Week. This week it goes to Pearl again for his thread, Pearl's Playground Download. This is a custom map that will let you fly ships around and blow some things up. I don't think I need to say anything else except thanks Pearl for hooking everyone up. By the way, Pearl is also a part of our Star Citizen organization, Romanticore, and if you would like to join us as well, there's a link down below to do that. We're currently at about 265 members, and we have a full community gaming website up and running with forums so you can meet everyone. Please check it out. That wraps up the news for another titillating week of Star Citizen's journey. As requested, I'm dropping a Bitcoin wallet code in the info section for people that wanted to donate that way, and I'll also post a PayPal donation link that I use if you wish to make a one-time donation instead of a weekly contribution via Patreon. Thanks everyone that has decided to support the show already. I'm almost halfway to the goal of $150 on the Patreon website. Watching, liking, and commenting is also an excellent way to support, and I appreciate every single bit of it. I love you guys, and I'm always humbled by the amount of support that I receive. Without you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. Until we meet again next Monday, this is Wes, signing off.